Hello chess friends and welcome to Azarov Chess Channel and welcome to a spectacular game from the Computer Blitz Chess Championship in 2024 Super Finals between the two top engines, Stockfish and the Tor Chess engine. After 500 games they played, the result was very epic. Stockfish dismantled the Tor Chess engine with a clear result. Stockfish after 500 games gained 294.5 points against the Torch, 205.5 points, which was, I think, a clear result. Stockfish had almost a plus 100 result against the Torch Chess engine. I'm a little bit surprised, not of course because of the fact that Stockfish won, but I think the difference is very high, because in the semifinals of the Computer Blitz Chess Championship, the Torch somehow managed to battle against Stockfish, also took the lead in one particular moment in the semifinals, but now in this epic finals it was simply pure domination by the Stockfish chess engine. So I've sorted out really an amazing, again, a spectacular wild attacking gameplay by the Fish against Torch. In my opinion, simply one of the best chess games so far from this event, from the Computer Blitz Chess Championship in 2024. So let's dive now into the game with the white pieces. The Fish opened with the move e4. The Torch response was e6, the French defense. We have now the move d3, which is now the so-called King's Indian attack. We're trying to do something like knight to f3, g3, bishop to g2, then later push the pawn on f4, f5. At least what the pawn chain here is showing us, that white will try, of course, to somehow create a king side flank attack, of course, similar like in the King's Indian defense. When you're playing the reverse side, you're trying, of course, to do something on the king side. We have now the move c5. That's why Torch is trying some kind of a queen side flank attack. So you see now it becomes an opposite side attack game. White is attacking the king side, black is attacking the queen side. Bishop to g2, now b5 immediately, castling queen to c7, and now Stockfish doesn't want to tolerate any activities on this side of the board, stop somehow black's progress. You could play, of course, the move b4, which is actually even the suggested move by the Stockfish chess engine, but then you're leaving some weak squares. Maybe c4 is an option, bishop to f4, knight to d6. So these are, of course, the tiny little differences in the statics and dynamics. I think when you push the pawn to b4, the position gets more and more static. It's not so dangerous on the queen side. That's why per a6, but actually this move a6 was also the last move that was prearranged by the organizer. From this point on, the engines are calculating the position for themselves. So see, Torch is trying to keep somehow here a flexible pawn structure. Here the Torch chess engine is trying to do something still on the queen side. After move a4 and a6, Stockfish doesn't want to take, of course. Stockfish plays first of all the calm c3, is trying also to launch a central breakthrough with the move d4. We have now knight to f6 attacking the pawn, and now knight to a3 by the Fish, putting more pressure against the b5 pawn. Bishop develops, and now d4. Very interesting line here by the Fish, immediately going for the attack. Let's see now options. I've analyzed at home also this line, knight to e4, seemed tempting to me, seemed like a logical idea. Why shouldn't you take here the pawn on e4? Actually, then this happens. A takes b5, a takes b5, and now you get this one, bishop to f4. You decoy now the queen to the d file, and now you play a beautiful queen to e2, double attack against the pawn and also against the knight. For instance, you retreat and then you lose this pawn on b5. So this is very important line, because I think if black would have allowed this tactical sequence, then black would lose simply the main strength that black gained in the first place, this queen side flank attack. When you take out this pawn, I don't think that black has so many attacking chances. So that's why here, look at this, knight to f6, knight to b5 comes also with the tempo. Not a good continuation, I think, here for black. So that's why after d4, the Torch chess engine keeps it calm, doesn't want to take the pawn on e4. Stockfish continues with d5 anyway, and now after knight to a7, a takes b5, and now Ceci's Torch still keeps this progressive ideas here on the queen side. Now comes another beautiful move by the Fish, knight to c2, again allowing here Torch to take the pawn on e6 on e4, but this is again not working. For instance, you try knight to e4, then we take, bishop takes, rook attacks now the knight, and for instance you try to defend this position, but now you get this one. Too many pieces are lined up here on the e file. You could maybe even try here knight to d5 in order to protect the knight on e4, but then you get this one, knight to e4. Look how dirty Stockfish tactics are. After something like f takes e4, you're trying this one, bishop to f4, you're trying bishop to d6, but now you play this one, rook takes e4. This is the way to go. If of course bishop to f4 happens, then we have this one. This bishop is weak, you cannot castle, the king is stuck in the center. If you try something else, if you try to do this, then bishop to d6 wins again the exchange here. Back, the queen is centralized, this pawn is weak, the knight will come into the game through the square e3. So messed up position again here for black. So see how Stockfish calculates everything in a good way. It's not allowing this pawn on e4 to be taken by black. Very great opening theory here by the fish. Kingside castling, rook to e1. Now finally, when the king is not on the e file, Stockfish finally protects now the pawn on e4. e5. This move is of course creating a blocked out pawn structure in the center of the board, but keeps also the dark square bishop out of game. The dark square bishop is stuck now. It's blocked out by its own pawn structure. It's of course not the optimal setup here for black, but at least you have prevented some maybe progressive ideas by white with the later move e5. So after e5, Stockfish plays now a very important defensive move, I would say, plays now the move b4. A very important move, because after c4, notice now that the pawn structure on the queen side is blocked out, and now black doesn't have any attacking chances anymore on the queen side. So Stockfish with the move b4 solved all of the positional problems on this side of the board. It has now also space advantage here. And when it comes to piece activity, I think look at this bishop is good. This knight can be included into the game. For instance, again, knight to e3, knight to f5, this knight can be included into the game. Now you're trying maybe something like, I don't know, h3, knight to h2, f4 seems also tempting to break and enter in the center of the board. I think when it comes to potential threats, white has still the flexibility on the king side to do something. On the other hand, black's attack on the queen side is splashed. Nothing can be done on this side of the board. And now the real fun starts. After move bishop to e3, Stockfish attacks first of all the knight. The knight is out of game. Look at this. It doesn't have good squares to escape. So that's why rook to b7 has to be played. But now comes the real stunner of this game. Stockfish play now the amazing knight takes e5. This is the way they go. Really crazy move. After d takes e5, of course you are trying to do d6. You would love to get the fork against the queen and the bishop, and Stockfish prepares that with rook to a6. d6 is a huge threat. Here Torch prevents it with rook to d8, but now queen to a1. This is an epic move because now the knight is out of game. The knight doesn't have escape squares, so that's why you're pretty much forced to play the move rook to d7. Rook to d7 is protecting the knight for a while, but notice the move rook to d7 blocks out now also the bishop's activity. So what black would love to do is of course somehow play somewhere with the bishop. We're trying to get the bishop maybe here to g4 and then to escape with the knight on c8. And that's why Stockfish anticipates the possibility of bishop to g4 and plays now an amazing f3. Great follow-up. It's not allowing this bishop to be developed, because if you do something, if you try here from black's perspective, maybe the move bishop to d6 will simply here double up here also on the a file, and still look at this, the bishop doesn't have good squares. You're trying of course to escape somehow with the bishop, and as I said, trying to move knight to c8, but it's not working because white will simply build a battery. And even if you play bishop to d7 here somehow to liberate the square for the knight, then you have disconnected the rook from the defense of the knight on a7, and white will get the piece back. So that's why this move f3 was very epic, because as I said, you're trying to maybe do rook to e7 and maybe bishop to g4, but now with the move f3 we prevented the bishop to come to d7 but also to g4. Very amazing play in the beginning by the Stockfish chess engine. After queen to a2, Torch had it enough, play now rook to d6, and Stockfish gets finally the piece back. But Stockfish in this tactical sequence gained the very important d6 pawn, and it's strategically, I would dare to say, an almost lost game here already for the Torch chess engine. Rook to a7, Stockfish of course traded off, and look at this. White is up a pawn, has now this supported pass pawn on the d file. Rook is not well placed. We can of course include the knight into the game. Very unpleasant game now here for black. Immortal tactical sequence by the fish. Rook to a6, bishop to c5 here. As I mentioned, white is much better. Knight to d7, knight to e3. Good move by the fish, because even if you take now the bishop pair off the board, then these two pawns are mobile. These are two connected passers on the C and D file. They're rolling. They will eventually get an attack against his bishops with the support of the rook, with the support maybe of the knight. Again, game over here for black. After knight to e3, torch is battling. Stockfish pushes the pawn further. Great move again by the fish, because even if you try this one, then knight to d5 comes with a threat against the rook. Then you try knight to e7. You have to take because the bishop is also hanging on c8. And after d takes e7, something like knight to f6, but now rook to a1 and game over. We'll get the rook on the 8th rank. Of course, the bishop would be hanging. We can promote too many options again here for white. After d6, that's why g5. Torch is creating some breathing spaces, but now Stockfish gets use of the square, and of course also protects now the c3 pawn. Still has options with knight to e7. We have bishop to g7, bishop to h3. Great move, activating the bishop. Now all of white's pieces are playing in brilliant harmony. Knight to c5, bishop takes c8, knight to a4, and now Stockfish simply protects now the pawn on c3. Torch is of course relying here on a potential maybe opposite colored bishops endgame, where maybe white could be left with the light square bishop, black could be left with the dark square bishop. Then in many games it is a drawish position. But notice also a very important problem of black's pawns are still on light square, so white has always the option bishop to d7, start to grab these pawns here on the queen side. So this also not something that black wants to get. So that's why here knight to b6, trying, as I said, the strategic idea to trade off everything, but Stockfish keeps it calm. We have now h5. Even if you try knight to d5, then we can take e takes d5. You're trying to do something like this, and as I mentioned, slowly but surely this pawn will fall. Stockfish has the passers here on the d file. Again, game over, I would say, here for black. After bishop to b7, h5, Stockfish plays knight to c7, rook to a2. Now Stockfish goes for the pawns, and now plays rook to a1. Activates now finally the rook on the a file, because now Torch has left the defense of the a file. Torch is going, of course, for the d6 pawn, but actually it's not so easy to take this one, because you get the fork on e8. So look how Stockfish calculate everything in a great way here in this beautiful endgame. After rook to a1, h4, we have bishop takes b5, g4, Stockfish takes. Torch is having here an annoying pawn, because you cannot leave, of course, the first rank. You could have some annoying checks on the first rank, so that's why rook to f1, first of all by the fish, rook to g2, king to h1, and now Torch is finally going for this pawn on the d file. But again, knight to e8 is still working, so that's why bishop to c6. We have now knight to c8. Stockfish protects it. Torch takes. Stockfish takes. Again, Torch takes. But again, this pawn is falling. And I would say here completely winning endgame here for the fish. Because Stockfish will again create two passers here on the queen side. f6. Stockfish goes for the square c1. Protects, of course, this pawn. Stockfish takes. Here Torch attacks the bishop. Attacks it again. And now Torch gets, of course, the rook very active on the second rank. But it doesn't matter. Stockfish is going now for this pawn. Tries g5, bishop to h3. Then, of course, the king could be very active in this endgame. That's, I would say, here completely winning here for white. Rook to c4. We have f5, bishop to f5. Torch takes. Stockfish push the pawn further. And now comes this idea g5. Stockfish takes. Of course, Torch takes. But look at this. Stockfish has now here three passers on the king side. Again, completely winning endgame here for white. Bishop to d2, bishop to g4. Stockfish takes out now another pawn, protects also now the e4 pawn. Bishop to c3. Now Stockfish, of course, activates the king, and now again retreats, attacks now the bishop, and now simply again plays very active with the king. We have bishop to e6. Even if you try here rook to h2, then rook to d7, we get the king closer. Even if you take, there is this line. We simply deflect the king from the defense of the bishop. And again, it would be game over here for black. After bishop to e6, we have an attack against the bishop. We have king to f8, and now Stockfish is getting, of course, the king closer, pushes the pawns further here. Nothing can be done. It's an easy endgame. Again, Stockfish just push the pawn further. You can attack it, of course, but then again, a new check would happen simply by the rook. So that's why rook to a8. Stockfish pushed the pawn further, pushes also the h pawn, bishop to c5. Here, Torch played bishop to e7. Of course, rook takes e7. These pawns on the 7th rank are unstoppable for the rook. Stockfish promotes the queen, gets another queen, and now after a couple more moves, Stockfish delivers the checkmate here on g7. Great attack by the fish. Amazing stuff. I really liked this knight to e5. I'm not sure how many of us would dare to play this move, would even consider this move, because Stockfish noticed this lack of development of the light square bishop. The problems here, as I mentioned, around the square d6, you're pretty much forced here. Look at this. Let's repeat this tactic again. Stockfish puts more pressure, forces now the rook to come to d7, but notice that the bishop is out of game. When the bishop is out of game, then the knight is also out of game. Again, a very wild game played by Stockfish 16. So, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, Stockfish dominated over Torch in this computer Blitz Chess Championship in 2024. Is again a winner of a new computer chess competition. Congratulations again to developers of the Stockfish chess engine. And okay, if you want to see some other epic, sharp, brutal, tactical chess like this, check out our Computer Chess Games Played by Computer series with some more games played by Stockfish, Alpha Zero, Lila Zero, and many more. And if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos. And what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.